G. Scott Jr. is a player that you might say, Jay, he's been lost in the sauce. He has not been utilized as properly as we think he should. So I'm going to ask you, I'm not going to respond for you. Leave it in the comment section. What role do you think Ohio State should use for G. Scott Jr.? What do you think? Do you think it should be more of a receiver who's played in spot duty? Do you think it should be more of a tight end 1, tight end 2 for Ohio State? What do you think the role for G. Scott Jr. should be with this team? I firmly think that Ryan Day could use G. Scott Jr. short yardage situations as a split out, a tight end that's outside, not on the line of scrimmage, but more in that slot position, a split out tight end, but also really primarily not just short yardage, saying 2nd and 3, 3rd and 2, those type of situations. Maybe you want to have a crackback block where he split out. Let's say on one side, on the outside, you have Marvin Harrison Jr. to your right. Inside him, to the left of him at the slot, is G. Scott Jr. And then right inside of that and him is Cade Stover. And so let's just say you want to have that being the side of the ball, 3rd and 2 on your own 48, and you want to run the ball. And instead of the defense having a guy covering up G. Scott Jr., nobody's covering him up, but they're still taking away the slant on the inside via the outside backer. Next thing you know, snap of the ball, G. Scott Jr. comes down left, crackback block on the outside backer that's there taking away the slot. Next thing you know, Trevin Henderson goes around for a 5-yard gain, first down, move the chains. That can be something you see there. But I do think he could be in the passing game, the passing threat in the red zone. 20 on in, maybe 15 or 15 on in, 20 on in. That'll be G. Scott Jr.'s possibly bread and butter in the passing game. Once again, little scenario we're going to play for you. 6'3", 225, and your slot to the right. And your slot to the left, getting a little interesting here. Slot to the left, not really slot to the left. And he's going to be on your slot to the right. Jackson Smith-Njigba is solo on the left side. Not normal for him, but he's solo to the left side. And then the next thing you know, you have Marvin Harrison Jr. on the right side of the field. Okay, you got a corner right there on Njigba. Do you put a linebacker on G. Scott Jr.? Do you bring a safety down on G. Scott Jr.? It could be crazy. Now let's play another scenario. Right, trips to the right with a tight end on the second slot position. Outside Marvin Harrison Jr. One slot inside of him is going to be Jackson Smith-Njigba. The tight end inside of Njigba is going to be G. Scott Jr. On the other side, you're going to have a Julian Fleming or an Emeka Egbuka. Think about that scenario right there. You're still having a tight end. You're not going to have a tight end on the line of scrimmage. We're going to have a back in the backfield. 1st and 10 on the opponent's 20-yard line. He can provide different mismatches due to his height, due to his ability to be more physical than your average receiver. He's more skillful than your average tight end in the passing game. Those are different scenarios we have with G. Scott Jr. as far as things that Ryan Day can do. Now, you may say, Jay, Ryan Day is not normally running these formations. Ryan Day does not normally split a guy out wide. Well, think about what you saw from Jeremy Ruckert last year. There were times Ruckert was split out and he was not on the line of scrimmage because we knew, and there was actually one time he was split out wide by himself to the wide side of the field with nobody else on that side. These are things we can do. Ryan Day just doesn't really throw the ball to the tight end. Ruckert was a phenomenal tight end, and I do think we may see a scenario like what we saw from Michael Thomas, where once he gets to the NFL, he just blossoms and flourishes in a bigger way than he did at Ohio State, because the offense that he's in now allows him to use all of his skill set. Every tool in his bag might be used in New York. Just like when we saw Michael Thomas go down to New Orleans, Michael Thomas really just went off. It wasn't that he didn't go off at Ohio State or he couldn't go off at Ohio State. Honestly, it was simply one of those things where the offense and the quarterback really didn't allow Michael Thomas to use every tool in his bag. I believe G. Scott Jr. can have a phenomenal role in this defense. That boy don't play defense. Can have a phenomenal role in this offense. I firmly think that. I also think it's going to take Ryan Day, Kevin Wilson, and the other coaches to really put their heads together as well as your now passing game coordinator, Brian Hartline, to really say, G. Scott Jr., what's the best role for him? How can he make us be the most prolific and efficient offense in the country? You figure that out, put it down on pen and paper, discuss with him the role that you have for him, and then execute said role. I do think G. Scott Jr. can have a decent year this year. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be all conference. I'm not saying any of that. It's going to be hard to be all conference when you're not a starter on your team. However, I think there's a role for him in certain spot places on the field where G. Scott Jr. can be that guy, can be a guy that can be, hey, do you want to split out Joe Royer in this situation? No, let's bring in somebody else. A little faster, a little quicker, a little shiftier. Let's bring somebody else in this role. Maybe it's going to be Royer. Maybe it could be Stover. But I do think if you want to bring somebody to your best pass catching tight end in the red zone or short yardage situations, or if you need someone to block a little bit, short yardage, because of the skill set, G. Scott Jr. can be the person for that role.